Welcome to the fourth side event of the 4th ACA Annual Cashew Conference. Today we'll be having leadership training for women in Cashew. Before we begin, please take note of the following. There is a simultaneous interpretation going on in English and French. Select your preferred language. For instance, as I'm speaking English and you are Francophone, select French using the globe icon below. After selecting your preferred language and you still hear both languages, that is the original language and interpretation, please mute the original language. During this session, we will have breakout sessions. We will have two breakout sessions, one for only English speakers and the other for only French speakers. Kindly indicate which breakout room you would like to be based on a preferred language. So if your name is Blessing Okam and you are Francophone, please type in the chat FR and then we can easily move you to a French room during the breakout session. Without wasting much time and now to proceed to the agenda for today, I'd like to invite Anna Sama, a co-host of this event. Anna is an impact-driven development practitioner with work experience in developing sustainable value chains in Eastern and West Africa. Currently, she is working for the International Trade Center in Geneva, managing Free Trade West Africa, a project focused on connecting women to international markets and improving their livelihood. Anna, if you can hear me, please you may proceed. The floor is yours. Thank you. Anna, can you hear me? Hello, Anna, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Now, I couldn't unmute myself, sorry. Now it's working. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Blessing. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning to all the Cashew women out there. I'm really excited to be here with you this morning during the ACA Annual Cashew Conference 2020. A Blessing already briefly introduced myself. I'm Anna Sama. I work for the ITC in Geneva in Switzerland, managing the so-called She Trades West Africa project. For anyone who does not know the International Trade Center, the ITC is the only development agency that is fully dedicated to supporting the internationalization of SMEs. This means the agency enables SMEs in developing and transition economies to become more competitive and connect to international markets for trade and investment, therefore raising incomes, creating job opportunities, especially for women, young people, and poor communities. I would like to welcome all our participants, all the women in Cashew out there who have registered to this Women Leadership session today. I think despite from where you're connecting today, where from in the world, whether that's from India, Brazil, Tanzania, or West Africa, we've seen very similar trends around the world and repetitive obstacles hindering women from participating and benefiting from trade, from taking leadership roles, developing a competitive business. And establishing yourselves as a woman leader is what this session is dedicated to today. I'm sure I don't have to lecture you on the facts, but I think it's good to repeat these anyway, that in the cashew value chain, women do form the vast majority of the labor force involved in collecting raw cashews, yet women ownership of farms, access to land and assets is extremely low. Likewise, women form more than 80% of the workforce in any cashew processing unit. However, women ownership of the cashew factories is less than 5%. Women leadership is also scarce in downstream activities such as value addition of kernels, retailing, logistics. However, I think we do also see a trend in recent years of more and more women engaging in the cashew business, striving to attract investments, managing a cashew business successfully. And you are all here today because you're part of this new movement of dedicated, inspirational women in cashew who aim to achieve more, develop their competitiveness, trade internationally, and establish a competitive business in cashew. The ITC launched the She Trades Initiative, the flagship program of the International Trade Center dedicated to women and trade in 2015, which aims to empower women economically through greater integration in trade and investment. And only last year, we started a new project dedicated to West Africa with the aim to improve the livelihoods of 10,000 women in 4 West African countries, including in the cashew value chain. I'm very excited to be together with the Africa Foresight Group today and their team of excellent leaders themselves to provide you with an engaging and innovative session to work into this direction of more women leaders in the cashew sector. I would like to thank again the ACA for the great collaboration, as well as for Tucom Cashew and Cashew Info for organizing this event with us, as well as our donor of the project, the Korea International Cooperation Agency. So I'm handing over to you, Yasmin Kumi, CEO of the Africa Foresight Group, and looking forward to this session today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. And we are really, really looking forward to the training that is lying ahead. Welcome everyone to our session. I am looking forward to engaging discussions and a great dynamic and working together to unpack the concepts behind leadership and hopefully ending the training with a good sense of some practical tools that you can all consider when thinking about how to lead. And I am here with my colleague Jihad. Jihad, maybe you can also unmute yourself briefly. Jihad is going to lead the French group today, while I'm going to be leading the English group. And Jihad can also briefly say a few words about herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Jihad Hajouji. I'm from Morocco, but currently based in Lagos, and I've been working for the past 10 years or so in the field of leadership development and entrepreneurship development, especially in the African space. And I'm very excited to be here with you today for this session.
Perfect. We also have two, if we could go to, we also have two co-moderators with us. The two co-moderators are Ajoa. We could go to page 3.
They don't follow the news.
All right, I think we can also now. So we have Adora as the English co-moderator. Adora, please say hello.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Adra Kudraji. I'm a consultant with AFG and I'll be your co-moderator today. I'm looking forward to a great conference. Thank you very much.
Great. And then Jihad also has a partner, Christine. Welcome. Can you also quickly say hi to the group, please?
Hello everyone, good morning. Looking forward to getting to know you all better.
Wonderful. So we have 4 female trainers in total, 2 for English, 2 for French. And now we would be having to split up between those 2 languages. Blessing, I think you would direct how we can now go into the 2 streams of breakouts, one being English and one being French. Could you briefly explain how it's going to work?
Thank you very much, Yasmin. So, as you can see, people's names have already been changed to EN underscore and then their name or FR underscore and your name. If your name hasn't been changed, please indicate which breakout room you would like to go in. Like I mentioned, we are having 2 breakout rooms, one in English and one in French. In these breakout rooms, there won't be any interpretation. That is why we are making it strictly either or the other. So please indicate which room you would like to be in, either EN or FR. EN stands for English, FR stands for French. And then those whose name have already been changed with the EN underscore, in addition to your name, a pop-up comes now on your screen asking you to move to the room, either French or English. Please, when the pop-up comes, kindly accept and move to the selected room. Your moderators are already waiting for you in that room. If you remain in this group, you wouldn't know what is going on in the other rooms. So as soon as you get a pop-up, kindly accept and move to your breakout room. Thank you. So we have 5 minutes for this activity. Thank you.
All right, so within the next 5 minutes, we will be moved into our breakout rooms and will commence the training. Jihad and Christine will be leading the French training. Myself and Adjoa will be leading the English training. See you shortly.
They are joining who is the guest name? When I say who, okay, I see. No. Oh, can't do that. If you're in the that is how. But if you're in that's cool. Some people they don't have names.
So move those people names. But I can see Blessing, for instance, Blessing is still here. You haven't moved her yet.
What
Blessing.
is it French or
English?
Can you complete
So move Blessing. I didn't move Blessing. I haven't moved her. She did.
I moved there. She has to go. She didn't join. A different thing if you do, if the person hasn't joined. No, if you Ashka, Ashka, Ash, yes, the names are not sure. There is nothing by their names, so I don't know what to do. If it's FI, that means the person did not join.
Let me make a note. Please, when we move you to a selected room, if you don't accept, you will be moved to that room. So like I mentioned, a pop-up comes on your screen. Please accept and then move and be moved to the other room. If you don't accept, you will be in this particular group and there are no activities ongoing in this group. Activities are currently ongoing in the respective breakout rooms. Please, when you get a pop-up, accept that you can move to the breakout rooms. We have an English breakout room and a French breakout room. For those just joining us, please note that we are having breakout sessions and we ask that you indicate which language you would like to be in. We have two breakout sessions, one in English and one in French. Once we move you to a breakout room, kindly accept. A pop-up comes on your screen. A notification pop-up comes on your screen. Please accept and then you can move to the breakout room. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Please accept when a pop-up comes on your screen. If you don't accept, you will be moved to a breakout room. So you will get a pop-up that says you are being moved to join a session. Kindly accept and move to that breakout room. If you don't accept, you will be moved to a breakout room. All activities are ongoing in two breakout rooms, either English or French. Please accept when the pop-up comes. Thank you.
Yes. Cool, that's all. So do you know something like that? No, that means they didn't join. That means if you Khadija to that means okay. Yes, please, your microphone is on. Is that it?
Please indicate the challenges you're having with regards to moving to a particular room. All those remaining participants here, kindly note that the session is ongoing in two different rooms, either French or English. If you are here, it means you haven't indicated or haven't accepted when a notification pops up. Thank you. Please, for those of us still here, kindly accept the pop-up that shows on your screen. Currently, we are having breakout rooms, either English or French. If you don't accept to move to your designated breakout room, you wouldn't know what is going on. Everybody here right now is either in English or French room. Kindly accept when a pop-up shows on your screen asking you to move to your breakout room. All activities at the moment are being held in the various breakout rooms. Thank you. So a notification pops up, please accept and move to your breakout room. If you're having any challenge, kindly leave me a message in the chat box. Thank you. Please, there is a pop-up on your screen. If you don't accept, you won't be moved to your breakout rooms. All activities are being held in the breakout rooms, either English or French. Please accept the pop-up. If not, you will be here with me and there's no activity ongoing here. All activities are being held in either English or French in 2 breakout rooms. Kindly accept the pop-up and then you'll be moved to your breakout rooms.
In order to be good leaders, we have to lead from the center, from our hearts. And therefore, we need to be self-aware first before we can be good leaders for others. Now, I will explain this a little bit more so that it doesn't feel too abstract. Let me actually go here first. The Centered Leadership Framework is a framework that consists of 5 different elements. The first one is meaning. Managing energy is the second one. And then we have positive framing, connecting, and engaging. And for each of these elements, there's a bit of an explanation here. Meaning is really about how to lead with purpose, being aware of who you are as a person and what you stand for. And we're going to do a small exercise on that in a second. Managing energy is more about prioritizing activities that energize you, both at work and at home, trying to keep your energy household together. Positive framing, on the other hand, is more about how you tackle challenges in order to be able to lead your teams through crisis. And of course, COVID-19 is a particularly interesting example here, and also something we're going to talk about today. Connecting is about being a deliberate and intentional networker. So really thinking about your environment and the stakeholders you have around you and who you can get access to. Meanwhile, engaging, the last one, is more about your communication style, how you can own conversations. So for each of these 5 elements, we're going to have a little input of just 1 or 2 slides. Then there's going to be an exercise. We can't break out into groups for the exercises because we're already in a Zoom breakout. So we're going to be in the plenary throughout, but we are going to offer opportunities for volunteering so that everyone has a chance to participate in an exercise in the plenary and have the chance to show what they have done. But I encourage that everyone does all exercises at home while you're listening to the session as well, so that you have the maximum impact from the sessions. Now, the beauty of this framework is, and that's why we picked it for today, that it is actually based on research of solely women leaders. It was built about 5, 7, 8 years ago, I think, and was generated by talking to more than 100 successful female leaders. And the observation or the core of the research approach really was that idea that inspirational women have exceptional influence and presence. I think one of you said earlier in our icebreaker that women are very organized and very good at leading. So in a sense, the framework we're using today built on that same assumption that women have specific leadership skills that are very relevant to further understand and unpack. And of course, today, this framework that has millions of books, millions of copies of the book have been sold. And it's not only for women these days. The Centered Leadership Framework is also used for men. So dear gentlemen on the call, don't be desperate. You are also welcome to use this as much as our female participants. But I think it's a very beautiful framework to use, also knowing that the source has been leadership research focused on women. Adjoa, do we have any questions on the framework? Otherwise, I will move on with the conversation.
No, Yasmin, no questions so far.
All right, so let's get started. We have 5 chapters to get through. The first one that we'll be going through is meaning, the one that is about understanding your purpose. What is meaning all about? It's really about what's your starting point? What drives you? What really matters to you? Of course, a big portion of it is also strengths, because often strengths are what informs our purpose to an extent. But purpose really is the ability to live up to your full potential, driven by some sort of inspiring goal. And it is really something where you wake up in the morning and thinking about that goal is what keeps you active and going, even when things become difficult. Research shows that people who have purpose often describe that purpose makes their heart beat faster, and that people who are purposeful and aware of their purpose are also more willing to take risks because they know what they're taking the risks for. And of course, there's been a lot of surveys around looking at different employee environments, etc. But usually the finding is that meaningful work translates into higher job satisfaction, higher productivity, increased loyalty, and so on and so forth. Adjoa, do we have a question?
No, we don't.
All right. So the idea of this purpose definition really is to be very aware of our why. And the facts are showing that people who have a very clear understanding of their why are usually also a lot more comfortable with leadership and ambiguity or challenges that they face on the way. So our first exercise is going to try and look a little bit more at this idea of purpose. And our invitation to you is to explore the exercise of creating your own purpose slogan. Now, a quick detour, you might wonder why we have Coca-Cola on here. Obviously, they don't have that much to do with cashew. But the slogan of Coca-Cola, or one of the slogans they use, is sign of good taste. The idea of our exercise that we're going to start now is that you develop a slogan that captures in a very catchy short phrase what you stand for as a person, what your why is. Obviously, the slogan concept is from the marketing world and is usually used for products, but we can also use it for people. So your task is to figure out, what is my slogan? What is my purpose slogan? Now, how are we going to do this? It might sound easy to do this, but it's actually not that easy to do. So we have prepared a little bit of a process for you to go through so that you can figure out what your purpose slogan really is. And the way it's going to work is that we would like you to take a piece of paper and create 3 sections for 3 different lists. The first list will be, what do I love or enjoy? Think about things that have made you happy ever since you were young. The second list will be, what am I good at? Things that come to you at ease, that you feel good about doing, or that often you also get complimented for by others. And lastly, what does the world need and is important to me? What things do you think are the most urgent to make our planet Earth a better place? Now, why these 3 lists? Let me explain. The reason why you want to do this is because it's 3 different angles on understanding where your purpose might lie. And once you have filled these 3 lists, you would try and start prioritizing which of the things you have in each section are the most important to you. And then you can try and build a slogan out of them. The maximum number of words is 7, but 7 is already very long. So I'd invite you to try and keep it to as little as 5 words, 3 to 5. Let me show you an example quickly as you get started, so you see how the evolution of this exercise usually looks. Here's an example of the 3 lists. Let's say the candidate says, I love impacting lives and people. I love showing people the way. I love teaching young adults. What am I good at? Public speaking, energizing others, building stories and presentations. What does the world need? More risk-taking and boldness in action, more heart, less capitalism. Now, once the person has filled these lists, the person now highlighted in red which ones are the most important to them in each section, and then tried to build a slogan out of these words. In this case, it ended up being moving people through boldness and energy. So I invite you to try and do this exercise. Let me know if there are any questions. Adjoa, are there any questions in the chat?
Not yet, but we have a comment from Bishnu.
Okay.
She says, all is wealth, nothing is waste. This is Cashew.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a slogan already. Okay. So we will take 3 people and ask them to present their slogans. But I would like to give you a little bit of time to do this exercise. Actually, let me stay on this page where you see the example. So take 5 to 7 minutes to try and put together these lists, and then try and aggregate until you land with a slogan. Once you have a slogan, please raise your hand so that we have a bit of an idea who has concluded with the exercise.
Yeah. Allô? Allô? C'est toi qui as écrit, c'est pas quelqu'un qui a écrit.
So I think a few people are ready. So I'm curious to hear some examples. Oyen Lawyer, you had your hand up first. What came out of the exercise for you? Maybe tell us first what the key things were you filled for each of the lists, and that what slogan you ended up with. You have to unmute yourself. Oops. Okay, I'm not sure Ian Lawyer can hear me. I know that Wim Simonse was also interested in sharing. Wim, can you unmute yourself and share what you've done?
Yes, thank you so much, Kumi. Yes, I went through the exercise, and I can also share what I think I love when I reflect. For example, analyzing complex problems, puzzling, how enjoy also how something fits in a system. Also, seeing that someone or something reaches its goal for which it has been destined for. And also having passion for the goal, to observe it and to experiment it. So I think where I'm good at is at listening and collecting all aspects of a complex problem. Also to synthesize it in a fast and let's say in a fast way, and also to combine it with passion again. And what do I think that the world needs is first of all also passion, and also having a holistic approach on a couple of complex problems. And also, I think it's very necessary also that people are motivated to reach the goal. So I distilled, I took every aspect and I put it in the filter, and I got the slogan out of it. Passionating puzzling by people for purpose.
Can you say that again?
Yes, passionating puzzling by people for a purpose.
Beautiful. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Is that something that you think you can lock away and use as a driver for remembering your purpose?
Come again, the line was a bit.
I would say so do you feel comfortable with the slogan, and do you feel that it's something you can lock away and use as a good reminder for yourself what your purpose is every day?
Yes, I think, yeah. It was a nice exercise. I think I got something, let's say, out of a little bit of dust, and I'm happy also to have formulated it.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thanks. It's a nice outcome. Oyen Loye, are you also ready to share?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so what came out of the list and how did you aggregate it to a slogan?
Okay, my slogan says creating ideas for a better tomorrow. Okay, and then this is how I came about it. I actually used the 3 questions and it opened my understanding to some other things. For the first question that says, what do I love or enjoy? I love making research. Like my focus is always finding something to think about or something to know more about, something to understand. And then it also is related to what I'm good at. I'm always good at finding solution. Like in a situation, even when others are saying plenty good things, not that I don't see the positive part of a situation, but my focus is always on something that is lacking. And then it's like, how can this be removed? How can this be changed to something better? So I find myself always thinking to achieve better on something, even when others sees it as the peak of it. Okay. And then what does the world needs and is important to me? When I see things or when I see the world, most times I always feel like I wish everyone can always step out and not wait upon her leaders to find solution for every of our problems. I see this in people around, even in companies where I work. I see that many things is like the head of the company is not doing this. Whereas it's something that anyone can actually step up and do. And then everything will become better for each one of us. So I feel the world needs everyone to be innovative, to make everything better for us, and to make the world a better place.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
for you, it's really about standing for idea generation and forward thinking, because you said for tomorrow, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Oyen.
Yes.
I'd love to hear a last one. Mary, you had your hand up initially as well.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I think I mentioned earlier that I read a lot, and I would like to quote something from Charles Darwin. And it goes something along the lines of this. Before I give you my logo, the reading goes something like this. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. My slogan is, and I like what the gentleman said earlier, passionate. You need to be passionate in Africa. And the other word is compassionate. When you walk around the villages of Africa, you need to see that there are people there that really, really needs help. So my slogan today is passionate, compassionate to create change for sustainable cashew business.
Beautiful, passionate and compassionate.
Yes. Sorry, it's gone.
Sorry for the, thank you for sharing, Mary.
You're welcome.
It sounds like there's a lot of thinking behind it when it comes to
absolutely, because
how you see others.
Yeah, because passionate, because you do have to have passion about wanting to do something and to do it right. And the compassionate comes from, and I'm sure everyone will agree, that there are a lot of people within Africa that need that extra help. And often we rely on the outside to sort of, to sort of intervene and help us. But collectively, I strongly believe that Africa can work for themselves and do very well for itself, but it lacks organization. This is where the women comes in, because we're mothers and we can collectively get people together and make things happen. But you've got to have the passion to be able to do that and have the compassionate within you to want to help others and see the sufferings of others, because otherwise you're wasting time. If everyone in this for money, or to make a lot of money, you're wasting your time because there's no passion in there, nor will you have compassion towards your fellow human being if all you want to achieve is wealth. So I think that is my slogan.
Very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm just seeing in the chat, there's another person who shared, Khadijatu Berry. Khadijatu, if you are willing to, can you briefly share the thinking behind your slogan? Khadijatu Berry, if you'd like.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So yes, our slogan is building rural lives with more heart. So we feel like, if you want to really make a change in rural lives, you have to be like just what the last speaker said, you have to do it with a lot of passion, with a lot of energy. So what inspired this thinking? What do I love? I love building lives. I love building young youths, rural communities. So what am I good at? I'm good at really inspiring, giving people a lot of energy. When I work with a lot of passion, with a lot of, vibe, and, that tends to inspire a lot of people. And what does the world need, and what is important to me? I think the world needs to look at the rural settings, especially in Africa. There is a lot to do and a lot to, a lot of ways to be able to develop specifically the agri sector and the cashew business in countries in Africa where, the cashew business is just starting up. So yeah, this is what inspired this slogan, building rural lives with more heart.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think it's very powerful. And I can hear the energy in your voice that you're talking about, and how it's aggregated from the different lists. So thanks for sharing. Everyone, thanks for sharing. I think that the beauty of this exercise is that it's really something that makes you self-reflect. And those 3 questions with the 3 lists really prompt oneself to think about our purpose by looking at it from 3 angles. And once we then distill it into a slogan, it becomes a very powerful communication tool. A communication tool in the sense that centered leadership research shows that leaders who are able to communicate with clear purpose get more buy-in from their followers. And they also get a lot more, a lot more of a status of inspiration, because people understand what they stand for. And I invite you to make sure that if you need more time to think, mull over the exercise for a day or two, but try and distill the slogan. Because once you have it clear for yourselves, you can then really use it as a tool to communicate to your team members, to other stakeholders, and build a little bit nearly of a brand around yourself, where people understand clearly what you're all about. It's something that can really, really help a lot in creating followership and drawing people in, making them feel committed to your vision and your view of the world. So I hope that this was an interesting first exercise in order to unpack the idea of meaning. And I hope that all of you either have a slogan now or take some time over the weekend to try and get to it. Apparently, for some people, it takes years to fully distill it. But I think it's a good way to start with it at least, and then see how you can dynamically adapt it over time if needed. So thank you for the volunteers who shared theirs. And let's move over to the next element of the framework. The next element of the framework is managing energy. And I'm going to explain a few things again about what this element entails. In the meantime, Ajoa, I need you to find me 4 volunteers. Maybe you can invite people to in the chat to tell us if they're willing to volunteer. I need 4 volunteers in the next 3 minutes. So Ajoa, counting on you. But for managing energy, everything is really about trying to be aware of your so-called energy household. The energy household is something that is very sensitive. It has a lot of impact on how we are able to thrive and be consistent in the way we lead. And it's something that for leaders with a lot of pressure is really important to look at. The long-term goal should be to balance energy resources so that we are resilient even when things get stressful and difficult, and very important, having recovery strategies. Recovery really is about figuring out what do I need to restore, and also making sure that you have some strategies for renewal. So things you constantly do to keep in balance. Another beautiful thing that is also part of the managing energy research of the Centered Leadership Framework is around the so-called flow concept. The flow concept is, I think, from the 90s, but the flow concept is about understanding what puts you into a flow. And to explain that a little bit, we are in a flow when we forget time. You know, there are those moments when you're working and you're enjoying yourself so much and you're so focused that you forget the world around you. You forget that you had a meeting, you forget that you wanted to eat, whatever. But there are those moments where you're just in a very, very deep sense of flow. And the beauty of that concept is that when we are in flow with our work, the depletion of our energy sources is also slowed down, because once you're in a flow, there's a level of enjoyment that nearly counterbalances the level of energy you have to put in. So it's something that's often looked at as part of renewal and sustained energy practicing for leaders to really be aware of how can I be in a flow and how can I avoid things that don't put me into a flow, because that's usually the fast energy depleters. And for me personally, I run a business, and for me, a really fast energy depleter where I'm not in a flow is monthly budgeting. I don't like doing that at all. So anytime I have to do that, I know that my energy level is going to drop a lot faster than when I do things like running this training that I truly enjoy. So there are 4 different types of energy: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And ideally, we are good at cultivating all of them in order to be able to be in a sustainable, balanced energy household situation. Now I need 4 volunteers. Ajoa, did you find anybody?
No, Yasmin, no one volunteered, but I sent messages to Mildred, Khadija, and Rita.
Okay, my dear
So
friend, let's see who can raise their hand to volunteer. Ideally, people who haven't spoken yet, so that everyone is able to do something in the training. Can you raise your hand if you are willing to bravely volunteer for the managing energy exercise? I'm sure we can find some people. Susanna, thanks for volunteering. So 1 out of 4, 3 more. Who is willing to join Susanna for this next exercise? Aisha Zakari, would you be willing to volunteer? Aisha Zakari, would you be willing to volunteer?
Mary Hansen has her hand up.
Okay, perfect. So Mary, then we have Salma Sitaru. Would you be willing to volunteer?
Hi, Yasmin. Yes, I'm trying desperately to find the hands up button, but I couldn't find it. So yes,
okay,
I'm happy to
sorry.
join.
Adjoa, could you briefly explain how it works? I can't see the same thing other people see because I'm sharing.
Sorry, Yasmin, what did you say?
It seems some people don't know how to use the raise hand function. Could you briefly explain it? I can't see the button because I'm screen sharing.
Okay, I will explain in the chat then.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Sama, thank you for volunteering those. So now we have 3. One more. Let me see. Who do we have here? Titi Lola, could I invite you to volunteer?
What would it entail?
Oh, don't worry, it's not going to be bad.
Okay.
I'll explain in a second. So I take that as a tentative yes, Titi Lola.
Okay.
So now we have Susanna, Mary, Sama, and Titi Lola. Thank you. So we are going to do 2 steps of an exercise for managing energy. I just explained that there are 4 different types of energy that we have to manage as leaders. And I would like you to walk through 2 steps with me when it comes to understanding each of these types of energy. So if I flip through to the next page, there is a little bit more of an explanation of each of these 4 types of energy. We have the body, physical energy, which is how active, fit, and nutritionally satisfied and rested you feel. There's mind, which is about the quality of your focus. Do you feel fully intellectually engaged, or are you struggling to concentrate? Emotional energy. To what extent am I feeling good or positive and connected to others versus maybe feeling sad or stressed or feeling doubtful about things? And then there's also spirit, which is really about at your core, your soul. Do you feel that you're spending your time in the right things? Do you feel that you're actually working towards your purpose that we just talked about? So each of you is going to take one of those energy types. And in the first step, I would like to know right now, at this minute, where on the scale from 1 to 10 are you with that energy level? Salma, maybe I'll have you start. You can pick one. You can start with body, but you can also pick something else and tell us on a scale from 1 to 10, where are you at the moment with that energy level?
On the body side, it's feeling good. I went for a run this morning and I've been eating cashews for breakfast. So it's now 11 where I am. So it's, yeah, I would say I'm maybe a 7.
A 7, okay. Why not a 10 though?
Pardon me?
Why not a 10?
Because maybe I should have had more sleep last night. I worked late.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Titi Lola, which one would you like to pick and rate yourself on?
Perhaps mental energy.
Mhm.
I'm highly focused. I would say on a normal day, any day, probably a 7.
Mhm.
But when I really put my mind to it, I can be extremely focused.
Mhm.
Annoyingly so to others.
Okay, got it. So right now, where are you? 7 or higher?
Probably an 8. I woke up with a purpose this morning.
Oh, that sounds good. That's how every morning should be. Thanks for sharing. Then we have Mary. Mary, which one would you pick?
I'm going to go with the physical part of it, and I would say that I am 10 plus.
Could you pick one of the ones that are still left?
Oh, sorry, I've got to pick one of the. Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Or should we have Susanna go first?
Okay, Susanna, you go. I'll have a think on this because I'll have my mind on the physical side of it. But anyway, not to worry. I'll think about the others.
Sorry, Susanna, which one?
Yes, so I would say I'm feeling very good about myself this morning. So I'll go for the hat, and I would score myself 10.
Oh, great.
Yes, because I'm very excited this morning and my energy is very high.
Okay, thank you. So Mary, now you're stuck with the spiritual one.
oh dear, oh dear. Okay, fine. I'll do that. That's fine. Okay, great. I'll do the spiritual. That's fine.
Where do you feel you are at this minute from 1 to 10 on spiritual energy?
So I would say then maybe halfway on that one.
Halfway. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Fine.
Okay. Thank you. So, ladies, now you have all rated yourself. And this exercise itself is already supposed to be a bit of a practical tool, because sometimes one of the important things that we forget to do is to check in with ourselves, especially when things are high pressure and there's a lot of different items on your to-do list that you have to deal with. Taking a step back and thinking about a little bit of introspection, how you are currently. I always say to people that I have moments where I feel negative. I don't know why until I sit on my couch and think about it. So that I really know what drove that negative sensation for me. And then I realized it was an email that I read 3 hours ago with news that I wasn't happy about. But this introspection of saying, where do I stand? What do I need? Is really important, because if we don't do it, we miss something. And then we are not able to deliver up to expectation as a leader, or ideally even exceed expectation as a leader as much as we could. Now, ladies, you're not done yet. I said it's a 2-step exercise, though. Of course, one thing to do is to be introspective and knowing where you stand with your energy level. Is it high or is it low? But you also want to then be able to identify what things you can do in order to get your energy level to where you want it to be, ideally an 8, 9, or 10 on each of these elements. Now, I would like each of you to stick to what energy type you picked and help me with this little exercise. So for each of these energy types, there are usually things we can do in order to recover the energy level in that element. And there are things we can try to avoid to not have it deplete too quickly. So for body, for instance, I know that if I eat a big plate of pasta in the middle of the day, my energy is down for the rest of the day because it makes me very tired. So for me, that would be something that I should absolutely avoid, because it's not going to help me with having a physically energy level that is on the high side. But at the same time, taking a walk in the middle of the day gets my energy level up very quick. What are your do more offs and your do less things?
I think with regards to increasing my focus, my state of mind, I rely on music a lot. I like quiet spaces. to reduce my state of mind. I'm
No,
not
things
really
you should do less to
extroverted, so
maintain your
going
focus.
out. Pardon?
Things you have to do less of to maintain a high focus.
Less of.
Yes.
Okay, so what can I do less of? I don't know. Things I don't like to do. Those are the things to avoid. And that keeps my state of mind, good, in a good and healthy place.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Mary, what about spiritual energy? Where you do more and do less?
So mine is spiritual, isn't it? Mine is spiritual. Is that right?
Yes.
I think if you are over 40 plus, it's all, and I'm sure probably most of us women on this call might be, correct me if I'm wrong, it's all about your hormones, and your hormones plays a huge part in how you're going to feel when you wake up in any given day. For me personally, spiritually, I exercise and practice a lot in yoga, Ashtanga. I focus more on my breathing, and I focus more on just switching off. I think the reason why I said my spirit's a bit low this one is that because of the call, I was unable to do my Pilates stroke yoga class at 9:30. So hence my half. But had I done my class, I would have been in sync with all of you at the level of 10. So yes, hormone is huge. And obviously, I think Salma said, the exercise and part in eating. Exercise is also very key. It keeps the mind going. If you're physically active, if you're physically fit, all the facets within this ring connects very well. But it entails that you need to exercise. And you need to not just go for a run, Salma, lift some weights to make you strong.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Mary.
Okay.
And thanks to all 4 of you for participating. I know that you didn't know what to expect, but I hope it wasn't too bad. And I would like to just drive home the point of this exercise. I think at the level we are at, we all know what is good for us and what isn't. But the problem sometimes is that we forget about it. And often, also according to the Centered Leadership book, which I, by the way, recommend to read if you find this framework interesting, is that once leaders forget about this energy management aspect, they underestimate what impact it has on others. As a leader, you're someone who is at the top of an organization or project or whatever it is you're running, and people look up to you. And as much as we can be also vulnerable and share when we're having a day, generally people are sensitive to how you are doing. And if we don't practice very elaborate and regular self-care to understand where our energy is and what we have to do to keep it up, then that can actually have an impact on our team and our followers. And it makes it harder for them to relate to you. I'm sure we all have this boss at some point in our career. Sorry, please mute yourself. I'm sure you've all had this boss at some point in your career who was like super moody and let everything that they were dealing with maybe in other parts of their life reflect on how they dealt with the team. Is not a pleasant experience. And unfortunately, from yourself, you underestimate how quickly people react to your different levels of energy and mood. So trying to be thoughtful and remembering these things, not just knowing them, but remembering is very helpful. And I invite you all to try and come out of this training with at least one thing you want to do more of to manage your energy well, and one thing you want to do less of that you try to remember every day, so that you have a balanced energy household that can make you a consistent leader who always has something, an element of being predictable in terms of how we deal with energy. With that, I would like to move on. We still have another 3 elements to go to, and I'm particularly looking forward to this one. This one is about positive framing and will also give us a quick chance to talk a bit about COVID-19. Positive framing is a very nice concept. Some of you might know it, some others might not. Often positive framing is associated with positive thinking. However, they are completely different. I think that we often have that idea that as a leader, we need to spread optimism and be the ones that generate hope and positive thinking. But that's very nice. However, as a leader, we also need to be able to lead through crises. And often saying as a leader that you hope something will be better will not necessarily cut it to make a team comfortable or really walk an organization through a difficult situation. What is needed there, according to the Centered Leadership research, is more of what they call positive framing. And when we say positive framing, we are more talking about how a leader is able to deconstruct a challenge or problem to make them feel solvable again. I am sure we all know these moments as leaders where we look at this big mountain that is coming up in front of ourselves, ahead of ourselves, and wondering how we're going to climb it. Well, as a leader, we need to be able to be the ones that then find a path to start climbing it. That's what positive framing is really about, being resourceful and creative, how to unpack a problem and being able to then start making it feel possible to conquer it. And obviously, positive thinking is also still very important, but it is alone likely not enough to be the leader that makes people feel like they have a rock that is somehow going to lead you through. It's positive framing that you need to achieve that. Susanna, I don't know if you have your hand up from the previous exercise or if you have a question. All right, then I'm going to lower your hand. So in terms of the positive framing exercise, I'd really love to give you a chance here to discuss a little bit more about COVID-19. Obviously, that's been the big topic for the year. And I think it's a very nice opportunity to apply the idea of positive framing to a very current example, because it's a big problem that looks like a big mountain. And as leaders, we need to be able to unpack and think about it more constructively. So I'm going to skip this one. I saw a very interesting article on the ACA website that was talking about how COVID-19 has positively impacted Ghana's cashew processing sector, because apparently it's now easier for processing companies in Ghana to be able to access raw cashew nut. So obviously, even though COVID-19 is generally a pandemic and an economic crisis, it does have differentiated impact on different types of businesses. There is an interesting analysis that was put together by a leading consulting firm about how this differentiation looks once you look deeply at different types of sectors. So what you can see here is a matrix that looks at, on the one hand, how COVID-19 impacts demand at the moment during this crisis, but also post the current crisis. And there are different industries here that have been mapped onto this matrix. The green ones in the middle are the ones that are likely going to bounce back to old demand levels, but depending on how high or low they are, they're either experiencing higher demand or the same demand as before the crisis. So, for instance, grocery and household goods currently are experiencing a high demand because people are eating home a lot more and are therefore buying a lot more groceries. At the same time, once the crisis is over, it's likely that this is going to bounce back to whatever old level it was, because people are going to eat out again more. There are certain companies, such as Zoom, where the service we are currently using, who have had a boom from this crisis with exploding demand, because now everyone has to use these tools. And likely, even when the crisis is over, it is going to be similarly to what we have now, that there's going to be more demand than it was pre-COVID-19, because now a lot of people have started adopting online meeting a lot more, and likely they're going to stick to some of it even when it's easier to have in-person interaction again. On the other hand, we have the gray box. These are sectors that are likely going to struggle a lot because they have been hard hit by the crisis itself. Restaurants is a good example. But even once COVID-19 starts subsiding, we will possibly have a very slow recovery rate for them because it's not going to bounce back that easily. Now, my question to you, I'd love to hear 2 contributions, is where you would put the African cashew sector within this grid. Do you think demand has been positively or negatively affected currently during the crisis? And what do you think will the impact on post-COVID-19 demand be? Let me see if there are some volunteers who are interested in contributing to this discussion. Go to participants. Anyone who has thoughts on this? Yeah, Khadijatu, please go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yes, I was talking muted. So for Africa, I think the majority of countries have experienced a slow, in the cashew stuff. Sierra Leone, for example, a typical, example, we conducted a training recently. And we realized that a lot of the cashew farmers, women cashew farmers, have a whole stock of cashew in their stores that they have not been able to sell because of the COVID outbreak. And this has really affected them and affected their livelihoods. So they are striving to find alternative ways to make some money, through like intercropping, and other alternative schemes. So like on a greater level for Sierra Leone, the sector has been negatively been affected by the pandemic. And, we are envisaging that even after, hopefully the pandemic has passed away, it's going to take some time before, some of these women will be able to bounce back and get to a level where they were. So they'll be able to do a lot of regional sales and maybe exporting. It has to take a lot of time and it has to take a lot of work. So, yeah.
That means you would likely put the cashew sector somewhere around here?
Yes.
Okay, so we're in the gray area. Mary, do you agree? I can see you have your hand up. Please unmute yourself. Oh, okay. All right, Mary has lowered her hand. Anyone who agrees or disagrees with the circle we put for the cashew sector? Okay, so I think that's the first step, right? That we are able to fully unpack where are we as a sector or also as an individual business when it comes to the level of impact the current crisis has on ourselves. But then the next bit is also trying to do scenario planning. For this next exercise, I'd love to have one person who is running a cashew business. Unfortunately, I don't know the backgrounds of everyone on the call, so I have to rely on proactive volunteering here. Do we have anyone who's currently running a cashew business in processing or production or any related service? Please raise your hand or type in the chat if you are. Let's see. Any volunteer who has What?
Yes, we have one person, Salma.
Salma. Okay, great. Salma, nice to have you back here. I hope you could have a little conversation with me, really. It's not a difficult exercise per se, but it's about really trying to think about scenario planning as a positive framing method. Are you ready?
Yes, I still haven't found the hands up button, so yes, I am ready.
No worries at all. Can you briefly tell us a little bit more about what you do, Salma?
Yes, so I run a cashew processing company in Ivory Coast. So we are processing 7,000 tons of cashews this year. We have 500 people on site, and we've been very focused on certification and doing business the right way.
Wow, impressive. Thank you. That sounds great. So here's what I have for you, Salma. And as I said, it's just supposed to be a bit of a conversation. Positive framing, again, means that we are able to deconstruct the problem. And COVID-19 has been a big elephant for many. And maybe you've also scenarios have different outcomes. Fast forward Africa means that Africa is going to continue battling COVID-19 somewhat successfully. Meanwhile, the rest of the world does not. And even by the end of 2021, we haven't moved further ahead with vaccinations, etc. So Africa will fast forward be able to get back into the former type of business interaction, etc. But the question is, how much will that help if the rest of the world cannot? There's also in this together where maybe even Africa will not be able to conquer the pandemic fully, neither will the rest of the world. And until mid-2021, end of 2021, we'll be in exactly the same situation we are in now. Falling behind would be a sad scenario, but also something people are currently discussing. Africa might still get a new wave of COVID-19, especially as airports open. In the meantime, there might be a vaccine coming soon, but it's unclear how fast it would get to Africa. So there could also be a scenario where the rest of the world starts recovering, but longer to recover compared to the rest of the world. Everyone wins. On the other hand, is of course what we all want, which is that there's a vaccine coming soon that helps to combat the impact of COVID-19 by as early as the fourth quarter of 2021, all over the world. Now, these are 4 scenarios. And now the question I have for you, or more of a discussion, is really, how do you think will your response as a business, depending on the scenarios start what do you think the impact of each of them, and how would you
them? I think in terms of how this is split, the first half waves until 2022, I mean, that's what we've been through already throughout the year, right? So we have already put up all the preventative measures, and, we're still on high alert factory. So we are going. In that way, because, we have Italian buyers, for instance, who had defaulted on their contracts early, receipt of containers. So we, as an African business, actually supported some Italian buyers during COVID. So I kind of experienced this firsthand. And the falling behind box for me is still part of that. We have gone in the sense that we have run a business here, we are running and have run the business here during the peak of COVID in Europe and during the peak of COVID in Côte d'Ivoire. And we still kept going. We still bought cashews from our farmers in the bush, and we kept exporting. Some of our clients deferred some of the contracts because the price of cashew kernels fell during a period. But interest went up. Actually, consumer demand went up at the peak of the crisis, and then 10% because of. and of healthier eating. So the trend of eating cashews, and especially steamed cashews as opposed to roasted, salted, etc., will keep going up. But we haven't felt that, obviously, because of reasons endemic to the industry and middlemen and intermediaries, etc. But the fact is, we kept running in box 1, 2, and 3 at the bottom. And for us, box 4, where everyone wins, would probably be great. But we have adjusted to a new norm. I mean, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but right now, apart from personal health and obviously making sure our employees do not fall ill and their families are safe, etc., I think it can only get better.
Absolutely, that's true.
And we have gone through it anyway. Did I not understand the exercise?
No, what you're saying is really interesting. Please don't feel that you didn't do the exercise.
Okay.
I think what you're saying is that even for the worst case scenario, you're now prepared because you've already adjusted, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not even prepared. We've actually tested our systems. We've gone through it, and we're still going through it.
And do you think, like the scenario at the top right, that everyone wins one, do you think there could be any opportunities for your business if there's a faster recovery from COVID-19 than expected? That you can
Yes, I think definitely.
some sort of demand boom, or maybe renegotiate some contracts to your favor? Like, are there any of those opportunities you see if there's a faster recovery from COVID-19 than is currently anticipated?
I think the chance we've had is, the food business has not been that impacted. I'm not talking about restaurants. I'm talking about, edible food business, because people kept eating through COVID, and people have shifted to healthier eating habits, eating nuts, eating steamed nuts, eating cashews. So all of that has played to our favor. The second thing that has happened is buyers have realized that diversifying their source of supply is very important. So we have had buyers who couldn't source from India, for instance, who've turned to us. And typically that would have taken months. I think in a scenario where things get better, as in everything, is hunky-dory, I believe that it will allow us perhaps to attend those trade fairs, to meet people face to face. It sounds like a dream now, meeting people face to face, to actually engage with buyers and talk more to them, to convince them of our product. But then again, I think people have also adjusted to online interactions. So I think everyone wins is great for the world. But I think obviously we will benefit from it if things get better in terms of consumption, etc. But I don't see this impacting us that much one way or the other at this point.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I'd like to briefly summarize what I've understood, but I also saw that there's a lot of reactions in the chat and raise hands. Let's see if we can take one or two of those so that people are able to maybe engage a bit with what you said. But Salma, I think the essence of what you said as well, we've already had to adjust, and we are in it now. So we are ready for the worst outcome. And even if the world recovers, there's only so much things are going to change for us. Is that a good summary?
Yes.
Okay. Now the point for me is that I think it's important to still be able to communicate that. I mean, I don't know the details of how your organization is set up, etc. But the idea of the positive framing tool as a leader is to say, I can disaggregate different outcomes of a situation for others and explain to them how it will or will not impact us as a company, to also create a sense of certainty or security for people. And I think, I mean, we work with a number of organizations as well, but often those discussions only happen at the very top, trying to see how we can cope with what's happening. But there's not a lot of communication where we say, here are the different outcomes that we think might happen, and here's what that means for our business. and saying that we are now able to cope with the worst, and even if things change, it will not change that much for us. That's also an important insight. But positive framing is really about making that insight known to your organization and making people feel that you have a strong perspective on the problem at hand. I don't know if that makes sense, because I think what you said is like gold, right? There are a lot of important things in there that are important organizational knowledge to establish. But I think often there's a challenge of making sure that you as a leader take time to explain these things to people. And that's what positive framing is about, that the people see that there's a big challenge at hand, there's a big mountain, but our leader has thought about it and knows what the different outcomes could be and what those mean for our business. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, I mean, I didn't go into the details of how we went through it, but
Yeah.
it took a lot of communication, a lot of motivation, a lot of perspective, which I didn't even have, but I had to give it to others to be able to overcome what has been a really, really tough 4 months. And I think, and now that at the moment in Côte d'Ivoire, there is, the number of cases are reducing, and there is a really strict control on people coming in and out, etc. So my guys, my team, my employees here feel that, it's going to be over soon. But I'm trying to make sure that people remain vigilant. It's the other way around now.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And you have to over-communicate that nearly, right? Because people start feeling that there's less pressure and less need to be attentive to all these COVID-19 precautions.
Precisely.
Yeah. Salma, thanks so much for sharing. This was really, really interesting and so real. Unfortunately, we can't applaud you on Zoom, but I think this was really helpful and very insightful. Thanks so much for volunteering.
Thank you.
So this is really an example of the positive framing exercise to say there's a big mountain we have to face as an organization. How can we deconstruct it and understand what the outcomes of this mountain could be? And then communicating what your perspective is as a leader, having thought about it, to show that you have a pathway through it. With that, I would like to move over to the last 2 sections. They are going to be a little shorter than the first 3. The next one is engaging. Engaging is really about saying, okay, how can I be a deliberate networker? Now I made a mistake. Engaging is about communication. And I mean, we all read this news all the time that it's scientifically proven that women are less successful in pitching their business to investors than men. The, I think, important takeaway to not have is that it's because women are worse at pitching than men. I think the important thing to distill from such research is that often we are dealing with more biased audiences when we are pitching, which sets the bar higher in terms of how well you have to do to get a certain outcome from a meeting. I think this is a very important point to drive home, because in many cases, as I said, there's this idea that, women are not as strong at pitching as men. But I personally don't believe that. I think there are women who are extremely good at pitching, but unfortunately, often the bar gets set higher. One of our female board members at our company sits on a lot of boards and always tells me how she's the only woman in the room and has to be extra prepared because she gets looked at more critically. That is unfair, but it's unfortunately the world we're facing. So we always have to exceed expectations. And therefore, we decided to also include a little bit about engaging communication here, focusing on the question of pitching. And there are a lot of videos on YouTube and so many different guides and handbooks about pitching. But we decided to keep it simple